Welcome to Theory of Knowledge Student. We're going to look at knowledge questions and real-life situations. All IB students will need to formulate their own knowledge question for a Theory of Knowledge presentation, and this clip sets out how. This website has got a whole section here on developing knowledge questions. So your presentation needs to begin with something from ordinary life, known as a real-life situation. So here's an example. In the news recently, the BBC reported this story. What damage does it cause us to ignore our body clock? Some people would claim that there are facts and evidence to support the view that we need 8 hours sleep, but there's also another side to it. And some people would say that this is a historical and a cultural particularity, and that actually it's a myth that we need 8 hours of sleep. So there are clearly two sides to the story here. So we've got some general questions that arise from this story. First one, what's an optimum amount of sleep to have each night? What can scientific investigation tell us about our body clock? Does it really make sense to talk about a body clock? What damage does it cause us if we ignore this body clock? And how far are our lifestyle choices about sleep and food really rational? And lastly, how has the amount of sleep that we have varied throughout history and across different cultures? Your presentation is much more than an interesting talk on an engaging topic. It really needs to be about knowledge and knowing. So this is key that you develop these general questions into knowledge issues or knowledge questions. So here are some suggestions. To what extent is our knowledge in science the product of nature or culture, and how will we know the difference? In natural science and one other area of knowledge, what makes a knowledge claim justified? And lastly, in order to claim that we know something in natural science, what factors should we take into account and why? You notice that there are various knowledge questions that arrive, and it's up to you to formulate your own question and just to choose one of them that becomes the topic for your presentation. Knowledge questions have got certain features. First of all, they're general. They're not specific to the real-life example. They're also quite open-ended, so phrasing it as to what extent keeps it open-ended, but other alternatives might be how can we know if, or can we be sure if. You also notice that they're very TOK knowledge specific, so you might want to pick out science, you might want to pick out the concept of justification here, and you might think about concepts like nature and culture. So they've got to be very sort of TOK specific questions. Do spend time formulating your question. You're sure to do well if you get your question well formed. If you want more information, you could look on this website, Theory of Knowledge Student, and there's also a whole section here on knowledge questions as well as presentations. If you want to find out more as well, this book that I've co-authored, I'm Wendy Haydorn here, there's a whole unit 4, which explains in much more detail what the requirements are for a presentation and exactly how to formulate a knowledge question.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.